Good morning YouTube. We're at an install today that a customer's had done by a previous installer. This isn't very old and they've already got masses of issues. So come with us to see how you can avoid them and see how we can fix it. I'm up on the roof now having a look, and this is so exciting. There's so many issues, and how do they leave it like this? So starting over this end, we've got this slate vent, which obviously has been stood on and pushed out of the roof. It's just ridiculous why they've left it like that. Just standing here and looking at the array, you can already see clips that aren't screwed in. I could fit my finger between the panel and the clip up there, so that's not secured to the roof. You've got cables here just slung on the roof and through the gutter. They're lapped underneath the slates. They're not in containment. They're not secured. And when you look under the panels, it gets even more exciting with the A-slates. Now, A-slates are MCS compliant. We do use them when they're needed. They're not a bad product when they're installed properly. But when they're installed like this, they're only going to be full of problems. These ones aren't secured to the roof properly. You can see the fixings are loose. You can shake the washer on top of the A-slate between the bolt. Now, that's never going to last. With these panels moving in the wind, it's all going to rattle free. This is the problem with some of these jobs. People are installing them and they don't necessarily know exactly how to do it properly, and then they get left like this. When we're installing these systems, we try to avoid the A-slates because there are better options on the market, but they tend to be less time efficient and they need a little bit more training, so you can't just send people to do the jobs willy-nilly. More problems. Notice that the rails haven't even been cut straight. The top one is about that long, the bottom one's tight and it just curves up, and there's no end caps. Just lovely. So we've got the first row of panels off now, which has shown us the great cable tidying they've done. No cable ties, no restraints whatsoever. This is all just hang in and pull tight and then wrapped around the other end the same as this. Looped around everything. Yeah, this is awful. Also, we can see the A-slates now. Some are one way, some are the other way. Of course, these only go one way, so one of them is upside down. So when surveying works like this, we do a thorough inspection of the roof and make sure there's no issues prior to starting. If there's issues, like you can see here, we'd let you know as the customer so that you can make a decision about how you'd like to proceed. We wouldn't want to install on a roof in this condition because we can't honestly guarantee our work and say that it's going to be to a good standard. Will and Jake have done a really good job taking the modules off, and we've strapped them to the scaffolding now. They're nice and secure here, and it means that there's no issues with people carrying them down and bringing them back up. That's just going to introduce more risks that we don't need to take. So they're here, they're strapped, they're nice and secure. You can see them just putting some flexible conduit back on the cables because they were just coming up the house, lapping into the gutter and running in the gutter. Why you do that, who knows? But we're going to do it better. So we're going to put more flexible conduit on, and we've asked the roofer to bring them up through the soffit underneath the roof covering so that they can come out where the new panels are going to lay on the in-roof mounting system. So we've got the panels off the roof now, and we're just removing the rails. The next stage is going to be for the roofer, and he's going to strip the whole roof, take all the slates off, and then put 4 courses back on, and then we'll be back to put the trays in and fit a GSE in-roof system. You saw us last time taking the panels off this roof, and since then the builder's been, they've stripped all the bad wood and felt, they've refelt and battened the roof ready for us. You can see they've put 3 courses of composite slates on here ready, and we're going to follow on now with the GSE in-roof system. We're going to lay them upwards, and we're going to put some extra battens in for support. and then the panels will sit in these. So we've converted it from an on-roof system to an in-roof system. Instead of sitting proud of the roof structure, which you normally see with the hooks on the roof, this system will sit flush. So we don't have to put any slates on the roof because the panels will become the roof covering.
On the deck.
So up till now, we've only showed you the roof and what we're going to be doing up here. We haven't explored inside. Once we've been up here and we've put these trays on, we'll take you in there and show you what the workmanship was like below. Because we've checked these and we know that these modules are compatible with the GSE integration system, we can offer the full MCS backed 10-year insurance back guarantee. And that's a fair point to look out for. So we're just looking at the internals now, and we've got this new consumer unit, which we can see isn't labelled, so we don't know which circuit is the solar PV. The cable does seem to go into the consumer unit, so we're assuming one of these is it, and we will test all that. Coming into the inverter then, we've got this mounted on the wall. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any fireboard, and it is on a combustible surface, so we're going to have to sort that out and put a fireboard in. And then they have connected it with Twin and Earth. Although not terrible, it's not very good practice because it does have a massive window here. So we do have an element of UV issues maybe. And nonetheless, Twin and Earth shouldn't be on show like this and just free in air. So we're going to change that, put it into some containment or swap it for a flex. The rest of it, however, doesn't look too bad. We do have the DC and AC in here. They likely aren't separated. They are clipped with some fire resistant clips here, and then they head up and just cable tie with the other cable and head out. It is supported and it has been labeled, but it's not amazing. So we're going to tidy up as much as we can here, get some end caps on this trunking. We're not going to go too in depth. We're going to test it though, make sure we've got a fresh DC cert, make sure we've got a fresh AC cert, so we can IR test these cables, make sure there's no damage going up, although we can see them their whole route and we have checked the top. And then we'll do the same with the AC. We're also going to investigate where this is fed from, because there is a cable here heading out of the consumer unit, so I'm assuming that's the feed and it goes across the room, and I'm assuming the mains is over there, so we're going to go and have a look. So I'm at the mains position now. The inverter is in the room the other side of this wall. I can see the Twin and Earth coming into this consumer unit. This is a plastic consumer unit, probably about 15 years old, and it doesn't look like there's any other local isolation. So I'm going to take the cover off and see where they've put the Twin and Earth to get their feed. Can anybody guess what we're going to find in here? We've got this consumer unit. Tails are coming in. It looks like there used to be a main supply in that other room. It used to be a shop, so it's likely they disconnected that supply and taken a new one from here. There's no other isolation obvious here, and this is the Twin and Earth that's coming from the other board or feeding the other consumer unit. So let's see where they've taken it from. So this is our Twin and Earth here. As you can see, it comes into a Wilex breaker, 50 amp. I've looked underneath this cover and there's one common bus bar coming across to the RCD. So we've got an 80 amp, 30 milliamp RCD here protecting this board as a fronted RCD. This is also protecting the sub-main, which then has more protection for the heat pump, the solar, and I believe the immersion heater. So there's obviously a selectivity issue here. This supply should either be on a time delayed or a non-RCD protected, subject to the install method of this cable, which doesn't really support that where it is. So we've seen that this sub-main is now fed from the first consumer unit on its own MCB. but it's also going through the main fronted RCD for the whole house. That's a Type AC 30 milliamp RCD. Now, one issue we're going to have is we've got DC feedback from the inverter, also from the heat pump, and that's all coming through this board back to the main consumer unit. Now in here you can see we've got RCBOs protecting these circuits, although they are dealing with a selectivity issue, because if these trip, then arguably the main one's going to trip. But because of the DC, that could be masked and might not trip. So we have a few issues going on here with the design of this installation. Also, another thing to note here, we've got this breaker, which is for the solar. It's been marked spare. Likely someone else installed all this, then they came and put the solar in and haven't relabeled it. But I have noticed that this isn't a bidirectional RCBO, so it's not suited for installation with the solar PV. If I take this cover off, you can rate the board and see how tidy it is. So I can confirm this cable does go to the spare breaker. We will be changing this to a bidirectional breaker, and we will be upgrading the supply protective devices for this submain. The board isn't that bad, it's actually quite tidy, so somebody's taken care to lay it out with time, but they just have overlooked, or maybe in some cases they've put that in to power this and not considered the selectivity issues here and the design considerations. So we'll get this sorted out so that they've got the best protection possible. So today the team will finish on the roof. We're going to get the trays in, we're going to get the modules on and get all the flashings finished so that the carpenter can come back and slate all the way around the exterior and get it watertight. So now we'll renegotiate with the customer, let them know what we found here on the AC side and make sure that that's resolved. That's going to be our next visit, but in the meantime, it'll be watertight. So as you can see, modules are all on the roof. They're all nice and secure and waterproof on top of the trays. So next job will be the flashings. We'll start with the top. They're going to get the lips riveted onto them. They'll have to be trimmed so they can sit on top of the modules. And once they're secure, we'll finish with the corner pieces and then come down with the side flashings. Once that's all finished, we'll hand it back to the roofers and they'll finish off all the slating. We're back here in Llandybie for the final day and we're checking out what's been done. You can see behind me that the roofers have been really busy finishing off the roof and it looks fantastic. This system is much, much better than what was here. You can see that it's completely sealed and there's no chance of water getting into there. We've replaced the system, as we've spoken about, with the GSE in-roof trays, and we've retained the original panels and put them back in place. So we ran through all the problems here before. And it's good to see that Connor's been busy and he's resolved them all. So we've got the inverter fitted with a fireboard behind it now. So that gives some protection for this wood wall from all the heat that the inverter will give off. We've changed the cable for the supply to a HO7 Flex. And we've relabeled stuff so that everybody knows what it is and how to use it. And then you'll see in this consumer unit, we've swapped the protective device for the solar and we changed it to a bidirectional RCBO. This has increased the safety on this system massively compared to what it had. The RCBO will work as intended. It's labeled up so if there's any issues it can be easily resolved. And over at the mains position I'll show you how much we've changed and how much better that now is. You can see here that the sub-main I showed you before, that twin and earth, was supplied from the spare breaker in the original consumer unit. You can see the new fuse box we've installed, and the whole point of this small consumer unit is to protect the sub-main. Although the twin and earth runs on the surface and in the containment, it is out of reach, so we haven't put any additional protection on that. We've put a main switch and a 40 amp MCB in this consumer unit, and that will give the protection it needs. We're really proud to have been part of this project and to be able to help this customer improve the safety of their system. Although they originally had their system done via a grant, which was great and cost them no money, they have had to spend considerable money having the roof redone due to the poor workmanship and have us spend time here to improve the safety of the system. If you'd like to know how we can help you with the safety of your system, or if you'd just like a second opinion on something you've had installed in your home, then get in touch. We can do a free visit, take a look and quote anything that needs to be done. It's great to see this system now generating, even on a grey day like today. If you'd like to see more of this content, then please like and subscribe. It does really help us to get these videos out to you.